Good morning again. Please, those seated at the back, if you could kindly indulge us and move forward to take up the spaces in front, we will appreciate that. We will officially begin the program in a few minutes. Once we settle the seating arrangements, I think we can do that. So, welcome again to the Local Event for Africa MedTech Fair at the Academic City University College. I'd like to invite Ms. Kukwanyako, the registrar, to give us a welcome address and show us a short video. So please welcome Ms. Kukwanyako to the stage.
Thank you very much, Sena. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Academic City. On behalf of the executive and management, students, staff, the entire community, we welcome you to our campus. And to tell you more about Academic City, please join us in watching this video. Thank you.
So about 4.5 years ago, this experiment called Academic City University College started in this quiet valley in Hacho, Accra. We arrived here with 45 students and a skeleton staff. 45 students, anxious students with their parents, wondering whether this experiment called Academic City is trying a hand at. The only noises here then were construction workers and churches. There were no toilet facilities, the rooms were hardly ready, with very limited faculty. We took up this challenge of building a unique institution that will serve the next generation of Africans. Academic City is an embodiment of a vision of one man who worked and thrived on this continent for over 30 years. And what a better way to give back than to establish an institution that will continuously churn out the next generation of Africans.
My wife saw an advert in the papers and drew my attention to it. So we decided to visit them in their office in town. We actually grilled the president, asking him all sorts of questions about their programs, faculties, and where they had their structures. As soon as we left the office, we went looking for where the structures were. And we realized that these were people who were committed. These were people who were focused, and we were really convinced.
In 2018, I had the pleasure of meeting with representatives from Academic City University College. I have a dream and vision that by the time I turn 28, I'll be a CEO. So at that point, I decided to go with an institution that was also growing, that would lead me into the path of growth and that could help me achieve what I wanted to. That's why I chose Academic City University College. And over the 4 years, it has been immense growth and immense chance for me to change my life.
So one of the things that we pride about ourselves at Academic City University College is our innovatively designed curriculum. You see, at Academic City, we know that the jobs of tomorrow look nothing like the jobs of today. And we know that if our graduates are to be competitive, then we need a curriculum that is reflective of industry, that is reflecting of upcoming emerging technology trends.
So the whole spirit of Academic City is to be at the forefront of how technology and entrepreneurship plays out in the 21st century. We've taken the bold step of establishing AI and robotics engineering, as well as biomedical. And the real essence of these courses are the research opportunities and entrepreneurship opportunities that play out at the interfaces of these programs.
But what we are doing at Academic City is not just introducing these new courses, but we've actually infused an element of artificial intelligence, robotics within all our courses, from the traditional engineering courses to the business administration courses, and even to our communication arts courses. If you look around you at the moment, anybody doing journalism, mass communication is heavily reliant on data, is heavily reliant on artificial intelligence. If you look at photography and where it's going, drones are taking over. So why don't we teach it? We want our students to be future ready, and all of our curriculum embeds some of these new and emerging technologies.
So how are we doing so far, you will ask? Well, I'm glad to report that 2 of our students got into Goldman Sachs this year. We were the only institution in Ghana that actually stepped up at the peak of COVID to build a ventilator. So the future is bright for an institution that has only been around for the last 4.5 years. Our achievements have been remarkable.
4 years down the line, we are very happy. We are very satisfied parents, and we are very, very happy because of the way our son has turned out. He's very confident, he's very motivated, he's looking forward to the future in confidence, and based on that, we make sure our daughter is also in ACT because we believe that she'll also receive that kind of education and turn out the way her brother did.
I think we can give a better round of applause for that. It's wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Prof, Ayiko, you've done, from your video, I can see you've done a wonderful thing. You've done a wonderful thing, sir. We're all here, the whole team. Every team needs a lead, so we're thankful. We're thankful for you. Right now, we would be having an update on the local Vent 4, Africa MedTech, the project for which we are here for. You can see on my left, we have a wonderful ventilator. I'm sure most of you would be surprised to know this is wholly made in Ghana, and dare I say functional, but we'll get to that in a bit. So I'd like to invite Dr. Lucia Japong to give us an update on the overall status of the project. Please give her a round of applause.
Good morning, everybody. How are we all doing? Once again, thank you so much for joining us here today. So I'm here to give you a bit of a project update about the ventilator, how it came to be, what we've done, and how we got to the model that you're seeing in front of us. So for our presentation, I know I have 20 minutes, and I'll try not to exceed that. And if I may do better and finish on time, hopefully. So these are some of the things I'll be touching on. What happened? What caused us to do this project in the first place? What was the design specification? What were we trying to achieve? What does it look like? What was the concept behind it? Some of the designs that we came up with, what we ended up with, and how that has evolved to where we are today. And we'll end it all with the testing and validation. So if we all throw our minds back to March 2020, particularly in Ghana, it was at that time that all over the world, it looked like everybody was going through something. And I remember quite vividly how this happened, because we were just at home and we were given the order that Accra is going into partial lockdown because of the coronavirus. And you know, you have the details on the 12th of March, the World Health Organization had declared a global pandemic. At that time, I think about 300 million people had it. Now we have 690 people. At that time, 6 million people had died already. We heard that it was devastating first world, second world countries. So we were all scared that now it's getting to Africa. It's going to eat Africa alive. And our president, Professor Fred Magbagan-Lurie, said, we're not just going to sit around and be observers. As the president had said there, we shouldn't be citizens only. We shouldn't be spectators. We should be citizens. So he took out this initiative and put out an alert actually on Facebook to say that we can't just sit down and not do anything. Who is interested to join me, as in join him, Professor Fred, to build a ventilator for our nation? And I think at that time when we did our research, there was about only 47 ventilators in Ghana. Most of them have issues, most of them in ICUs, not all over the country, not in remote areas. So he took out the initiative and said, what can we do to ensure that we put ourselves at a much better position? Needless to say, over the years, Ghana, we won't say we were spared, but at least what happened to first world countries is not what happened here. Nevertheless, it gave us an opportunity to create something that is made for Ghana, by Ghana, actually made for Africa. So the aim of this project was to design and rapidly prototype a low-cost ventilator using locally available and commercially off-the-shelf materials in developing countries such as ours to assist healthcare professionals to treat the COVID-19 pandemic. What we aim to do is that the working prototype will then be tested in consultation with healthcare practitioners and then eventually go through regulatory bodies to get it certified and then get it on the market. Our working mindset behind this is that we wanted a ventilator or a solution that will meet at least these minimum design specification, which is in line with what the UK MHRA had specified as well. We want to be able to deliver a constant tidal volume to the lungs at 4-second intervals. We want to be able to re-inflate a collapsed alveoli or a collapsed lung. We want to be able to maintain positive expiration pressure in the lungs. And we want to use locally sourced materials where possible. Again, coming back to the low cost, made in Ghana, for Ghanaians. Now, bear in mind that when Prof made the call outs for this, we had 10 volunteers from different backgrounds. I remember we had 4 volunteers from our institution. We had 2 students from mechanical engineering, 1 student from computer engineering, 1 student from electronic engineering, who later on became the design leads in the actual project. So some of us took the more professional stand and became project managers, but the actual knowledge, the brains behind the concept you see today is born or was led predominantly by our students who have now graduated. So what was the working principle behind it? Even though most of us then did not have a background in biomedical, we were all engineers, and as engineering is there to solve problems, so we had to learn on the job. And I remember there was an interview around that time, and someone challenged Professor Fred and said, have you built a ventilator before? And if not, why are you assembling a team to build something you've never built before? And I remember his answer so vividly, because his answer was, no, I've never built a ventilator before. But all the products that I built when I was in a Fortune 500 company, I had never built them before. So now there's not the time to stop me. So we did the necessary research. We've tapped into some experts that we had in our team at that time to identify what does it look like, what will we need, and how will they function. Just so that we don't become too technical, and this is not meant to be a lecture, so I won't spend too much details on this, but the idea behind it is that we have the main mechanism, how we're going to generate the air, how we're going to get it to the patient, and in the case of COVID-19, when the air was coming out, we assume that it's contaminated, how are we going to make sure that the air is safe to breathe if it's going into the atmosphere. We even explored the opportunity of having one ventilator that will be used to service multiple patients at the same time based on the same principle. So using that fundamental information, using that knowledge and basic understanding of how ventilation works, we decided to come up with some preliminary design concepts. And it's quite interesting to see how our design has evolved to what we have today. We came up with 5 design concepts: the piston type model, the one I'll call the celebrity model, because it's the one that started trending before we knew it. Then we had the bellow model, Aaron's model, MIT-inspired model, and last but not the least, the Stella model. And there's a reason why it's called Stella, because at that time we had a very, very generous donation from a lady called Stella, and Prof promised her that our first model will be named after you. But let's just go through the various design concepts. So the first one was the piston type configuration. I'm sure we all saw this on Facebook. I think before we knew it, it was making waves on Yen. And this was the first time we were trying something. We put some PVC pipes together using the same configuration of getting air from one end to the other, and came up with this concept. Yes, we were able to inflate the lung. However, it had a lot of inconsistencies within it. And to be honest, it wasn't one that you could put on the market straight away. So it was made up of PVC pipes. We had the Odum board on which everything was assembled. We had caster wheels to make sure that it was movable, screws, pipes. At this point in time, we were brainstorming and trying to figure out how can we create ventilation at the cheapest means possible. Now, this particular solution was not bad for us. I mean, you can tell it had a bit of a primitive look on it. It was able to depict the working principle. So in principle, it could do what it was required to do. However, it was very, very clumsy. It had scattered connections. We tried to automate the system, and actually it wasn't looking as presentable or as market ready as we would want it to be. So we moved on to the bellow model. The bellow model was, as opposed to using a traditional ambu bag or what you would find in ambulances, why don't we create our own bag? So we came up with this leather bag, and it was quite phenomenal how much air you could generate from just compressing that bellow bag together. But obviously, as with every design, there are other considerations. How are you going to purify the air? If you're making out for leather material, how do you make sure that there's no particles in there that is going to get trapped in the patient when we take it? Again, the footprint was a bit large once again, and it was suitable for low mass flow rates gas supplies. However, the low lights were a bit many, so we realized that in the end, we had to shelve this design as well. Then we moved on to what we call the Aaron's model. And we call it Aaron's model because we had one of our technicians who was called Aaron, who actually came up with this principle. It was very simple. You know how the ambu bags are the ones that, let's say, if you put in an ambulance, they keep on pressing it to give you air, right? So instead of using your hand to press it, can we automate it? So we just had that mechanical wig that was with a simple motor attached to it, and just automating it and compressing it. So again, simple design feature as usual, able to do what was required. We used a bit of windshield wiper motor to be able to achieve that. We're able to put the alcohol and everything as we set up for the first concept within this as well. But again, it was quite primitive, it was quite basic. And at this point, we were starting to get a bit more confident to say, can we do something that actually, if we were to put on the market, or if others were to see that this is something that has been designed and by Ghanaians, would be proud of. So we shelved this idea as well. We took that opportunity. There was a lot of open source concepts online. MIT had come up with a similar concept for a rapid ventilator as well. We looked at the MIT model and said, can we replicate that here? And yes, we were able to replicate it because it was open source software. So again, we created something like that. It just uses a mechanism to compress the ambu bag to be able to generate the required pressure. Again, it was easy to assemble once all the parts have been printed, but this relied heavily on pure 3D printing of all the parts. We used some local materials as well, but we still had a bit of some challenges on there. And being where we are, printer filaments is not easy to come by, so it wasn't a concept that we could take forward. Now, the concept that we then ended up with, the one that became the Stella, or Stella model, which now you're seeing the Stella 2.0, became the concept that we decided to take along. And this is how it looks like. So you all agree with me that looking at the evolution of the design concept, this model looks a bit more closer to what we see on the market as opposed to the other ones. But it was a learning curve, and it's very useful because that's how engineers, we learn by doing, by practicing on the job. So the Stella model, if you pick up and take up the case, which is similar to this one, you have your slider base, you have your ambu bag, and then you have the plunger. And all this was automated that just plunges, 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 and generates the air that is required to inflate the lung. So let me see that. Let me see if my, oops. I was going to see if my video was going to work, but it looks like it's not going to work, so that's fine. We'll carry on. So this gives you also an exploded view of how the base within that Stella model looks like. So once we have this concept, we were happy that we were at that level where we're closer to a product that we could actually put on the market. And bear in mind, at that time, what we're looking for was a low-cost, rapid ventilator, or one that could do a respiration only if required, because at this point in time, you wanted to be able to assist in whatever way possible, even if it's just giving air to someone who's already breathing and just struggling, air that you can infuse or you can mix with oxygen. That was, even that alone was solution enough. So our Stella model was able to do that. There was no intelligence within that. However, what we were able to incorporate within those design as well was incorporate the give the opportunity for you to use battery to power it, so you could solar charge it for use it for up to 12 hours off the grid. You could charge it in a car like you would do in an ambulance, or you can charge it directly by connected to direct supply. So this was the model that we knew that we wanted to go ahead with, and this was where I think between GIZ, who are our proud sponsors and partners within this, was the original model that we were going for, and we felt at this point that we had achieved the aim of what we were trying to do. Nevertheless, we thought that there was an opportunity for us to do a bit more detailed design within this. So the main crux of this design lies in the control system unit. And this is what you can see how our control system unit looked like. Again, we're looking at the original Stella 1 model. So you had your DC power socket. As I said, you had a car charging socket, so you could plug it to your normal car 12-volt input, so you can charge it on the move. It had solar power charging, which means you could charge those batteries, potentially go 12 hours to 24 hours on the go without needing actual DC power. We used the windshield wiper motor to be able to drive our whole mechanism. As times went on and with what was required, we required the ventilator to do, we decided to upgrade this and use a stepper motor instead to give us a bit more functionality within that. Now, we had to do some manufacturing design consideration as well. Yes, most of the time when we started, it was a bit of a trial and error, put things together and see what works. But once we had the moving concept, we just needed to start thinking about how will we go about producing this in large quantity. So some of the things that we had to consider is that we needed to determine what has to be purchased, what can we make locally, and what do we need from outside. So you tend to find out that a bulk of the structure itself, in terms of the frame, in terms of the base, even some of the consumables are all purchased locally or made in-house. But there are some electronic components that we had no choice, that we had to actually purchase from outside. But at least more than 50% of the ventilator is made from locally sourced materials and locally sourced vendors. So we had to also design for manufacturability. So modular design for easy assembly and disassembly. We want a ventilator that you can put in the hospital that we can just pick and move as and when is needed. If we wanted to do some maintenance work, you can just take it apart and fix it very easily. In our initial research, when we're trying to understand why we didn't have as much ventilators in Ghana as others and other countries, what we realize is that it's not because we don't have ventilators. We have loads of ventilators, but some of them have were not functioning. Some of them, the maintenance contracts were run out, and the original suppliers were not here to fix them. We wanted a ventilator that, as long as you're an electrical engineer, as long as you're a mechanical engineer, anybody should be able to easily fix it. So we had to take those things into consideration as well. We had to decide what process should be used and in what sequence, what tooling requirements do we need, what production equipments and systems we want. So if you look at the frame itself, some of the things that we considered was laser cutting of the framing. We looked at welding and bending. We went through different iterations to eventually get to what we have in front of us. We also manufactured the supporting frames. The stand that you see on here, again, everything is done in-house. We went through a variety of iterations, and then we also purchased some nice handles so you can easily take and move the ventilator across. So this is the final ventilator that we ended up with. And then we realized that there was still some more that we could do. So we decided to now start with an evolution of Stella and move on to Stella 2 and beyond. Now, if you look at Stella 1, as much as it was smart and it was very compact, yet still it wouldn't compete with ventilators of today, or even relatively low-cost ventilators of today. So we decided to integrate within this ventilator some LCD screen, bring a bit of smartness, bring a bit of intelligence to the ventilator as well. So we had an LCD screen that you can configure to enable any healthcare practitioner to monitor critical elements as required. We're able to show the tidal volume, the PEEP value, inspiration to expiration rate, thank you, frequency rate, and the LCD display can also display the patient's information. So you could get there, we know that, oh, this is Kwame, Kwame has this issue, Kwame is this height, Kwame is this age, and then that can be tailored to suit. Now, immediately we wanted to add some level of intelligence into the system. It required us to redesign the frame, because now we needed to design a frame that was able to have, for us to be able to put the LCD screen on. And we went through a variety of iterations before we ended up on what you see in front of you. We were able to update and upgrade the kind of motor we wanted to use. We wanted something that was quiet, something that was professional. We were able to go with this high capacity sliders as well. That was, again, using industry grade materials to achieve the same outcome. We needed to do a further redesign. So looking at our first model, you can see that we had a bit of orange, we had a bit of gray. We realized that industry and medical equipment tend to go for the white, easy to clean. So again, we had to update accordingly. And then we also had to think about ease of assembly and ease of disassembly, as I said, for maintenance and routine maintenance purposes. So that's what we went through, and that's what brought us to what you see in front of you today. So since then and since that time, we have been able to complete this model. We are now going through the testing and validation. Now, we've done some bit of testing and validation on our site here at Academic City. And this is where we have to say a massive, massive thank you to the Kolebu team, Dr. Jablate. We called him back in 2020, 2021, asked them to come and see our various concepts then. They saw the Aaron model, and I remember one of the team we brought really loved that model because it was like, if you look at the neonatal unit, sometimes a doctor has to take 24 hours just pressing that to allow a baby to survive. So even if you are able to automate that, then even that is an acceptable solution. And we told them, oh, we have more exciting things to come. So thank you so much, Dr. Jalabate. Thank you so much for your support. So once the Stella 2 was done, we invited him over back to our campus again and said, now come and see what we have gotten to, what the final model looks like. And even behind this picture, you see they are standing in front of Stella 2. There's Stella 1.5 behind there, which has a slightly different screen, but we're not focusing on that today. And Dr. Jabate gave us good reviews when he came here. He pinpointed some fundamental issues that we also have to be able to solve that we plan to address as well. So once we did that and we were happy, the next stage was to move our ventilator to industry. So to off-site testing. So this ventilator was then moved to the Kolebu unit again, and then we did a couple of testing there on dummies, just to make sure. Oops, it happens. Sorry about that. Yes. It was moved to Kolebu to do a bit of testing just to see how it will perform in a realistic environment. So as we can see from this video, hopefully that plays. Yes. From a completely collapsed lung, after 3 or 4 pumps, we're able to inflate the lung as is required. So we're able to test this at on site. We used those artificial inflatable bags. At least for that, we've tested it on a dummy. But again, there were key or critical lessons learned from that, which we are looking to incorporate within the final changes before we send it for certification and before we send it for final testing. All right. So a few lessons learned that we've learned that we can take from this testing. So the initial observations, both on site and both when we went to Kolebu, is that for the first one on site, Dr. Jablate noticed some leakages in the tubing and the ceiling because we were not getting the required volume that we wanted. Even though we had, I think, 800 milliliters of volume that we're trying to measure, we're measuring a bit under that, and we're trying to find out where the source of error was from. We also noticed that the ambu bag suffered wear and tear over a period, which means its material properties deformed a little bit. So again, it reduced the volume of air that was meant to be delivered. So one of the tasks that we are going to be doing is doing a bit of a stress test to try and find out after how many iterations do we have to replace that as well. You need to keep an eye on things like making sure that is the right ambu bag for an adult, is the right ambu bag for a child, because that also affects some of the critical parameters. We also noticed that there was some fine-tuning that has to be done to the programming software to make sure that we achieve the desired inspiration to expiration rate. When we're measuring the breath rates per minute, we realized that it was slightly offset a little bit. But again, that's what the testing is supposed to do, highlight issues that you can easily solve. And since it's a programming issue, that is not a problem at all. One of the things that was observed when the ventilator went to Kolebu was that the volume delivered was 60 to 70% under what was required consistently. And again, it ties in back to point 1 and 2, whereby we need to find a way to improve that. So some of the things that we have identified when the air is pushed into is pushed out of the ambu bag, the use of a one-way filter could be a one way to do that, so there's no air losses going back that way. We're looking at using better ambu bags. We're looking at our programming and say, how do we ensure going slightly over to make sure that the desired volume rate is delivered consistently. So that is one of the things that we're doing with the ventilator bag, doing these tweaks, and then we'll send it for certification. So in summary, we set out to do 4 key things. We set out to make sure that we come up with a device that will be able to deliver a constant tidal volume to the lungs at 4-second intervals, and we've been able to achieve that, albeit about 30% lower than what we'd expected. We have been able to re-inflate collapsed alveoli from scratch, so we've been able to observe that our ventilator is able to do that, both Stellar 1 and Stellar 2. We've been able to maintain positive end-wave expiratory pressure in the lungs as is required. And ultimately, we've come up with an emergency use ventilator that can be used for COVID or any other medical devices. So that tells you where we are with our project to date, a little bit about history about the ventilator project, and we want to say a massive thank you for taking out your time to join us so we could showcase this to you and to the whole world. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Lucia Jepong, for that illuminating presentation for us. Could we have another round of applause for Dr. Lucia Jepong? Yes. Seeing the various iterations the project went through is actually very inspiring. Shows the level of dedication that the team undertook, and I'm sure the results will speak for themselves. I was a bit disappointed that the iteration named after I think your technician, failed. Yeah. Would have been nice to have one technical person attached to. But all the same, we are happy. We are happy with the project. I would now like to invite Dr. Nicholas Ejebu, who is the head of the Biomedical Engineering Unit at the Ministry of Health. He's reading a speech for us on behalf of the Honorable Minister for Health. That's Honorable Kweku Ejimamenu, who cannot be here with us. But please give a round of applause to Dr. Nicholas Ejebu.
Thank you very much, and good morning to you all. The Honorable Minister had wanted to come. He was excited about what you've been able to develop, and it's one of the COVID was one of the things that has really given him a lot of headache. And knowing that something has come out of our situation meant a lot to him, but he could not be with us. So he sends his apologies, and I will take any message from here to him. Professor David Fred McBanolu, the president of the Academic City University, and colleagues from FDA, UGMC, University of Ghana, lecturers and students of this university. A speech from the Honorable Minister that I will read contains this information. Yes, it's a great news to learn that our engineers are venturing into the innovation field to explore opportunities to design and develop technologies to help solve the numerous health challenges confronting us as a country. The production of the ventilator is a clear demonstration that we are capable of achieving greater heights as a country. The outbreak of COVID-19 pandemic was a challenging moment for us, but by the grace of God, we survived it. Though some souls were lost, may their souls rest in perfect peace. Despite the consequences of the COVID-19 pandemic, it has also taught us great lessons, and these lessons are that as a country, we should be truly independent and should be self-reliant. Never has Ghana been in urgent need of critical medical devices and other important logistics to manage our healthcare than that of the pandemic period. We've heard a lot from the earlier presenter talking about what the situation was when the pandemic was declared, and the issue of ventilators that was the only solution to save more lives. With the COVID, there was a sudden escalation in the demand for such commodities, but we are happy to note that Ghanaians, as resilient as we are, were able to put whatever resources that were available to us to manage the pandemic successfully, to the admiration of many, even developed countries, and WHO has always cited Ghana as one of the countries that did very well in managing the pandemic. This effort has set the agenda for the country to venture into areas that we were not paying attention to. The COVID-19 pandemic is a real wake-up call, and I was happy to note that all professionals, especially the business community, the engineering community, brought their expertise to bear, and today we are witnessing another milestone achievement. Medical devices has become a backbone of the healthcare service delivery. They are essential components of the clinical procedures performed by our health professionals. With the escalating cost of medical devices, imported into our country to support our healthcare industry, we cannot afford to continue to look on unconcerned without making any effort in developing our own industry. Also, sustaining these imported medical devices is a big challenge. And as was indicated, the expertise to develop it is not within the country. If you need to sustain it, you also have to import the expertise. And where that is not possible, it means the lifespan of that imported device is shortened. And we'll have to continuously replace them to keep our health system going. Developing our own industry and our own technologies and our own devices means that from conception of the idea for the device, the design, the production reside with us, and we do not need to depend on outsiders to sustain all those devices. And this is a critical moment because as government invest in these medical devices, we cannot continue to carry the burden of this escalating budget requirement to meet the need of our country. As a government, the universal access to quality healthcare services as enshrined in the roadmap for universal health coverage by 2030 will not be compromised. For this reason, the government has to import these technologies and devices to ensure that the people living in Ghana are not denied of the benefit of the advances in the healthcare field. The achievement of this is therefore a step in the right direction. The Ministry of Health will follow this achievement and, where necessary, lend its support to this great effort to propel our country into the era of medical devices production. Once it is medical devices, I'm also happy to note that our colleagues from the Food and Drug Authority, who have been entrusted with the responsibility to ensure that the public is protected and quality is sustained for healthcare delivery, will take the responsibility to ensure that all that you are doing meets the required standards and also meets the regulatory requirements. This will enable the ventilator that you are doing and any effort that you will put in to develop other medical devices to be marketed not only in Ghana, but beyond the shores of Ghana. The effort in building local capacity to innovate, design, and produce medical technology will therefore will require policy guidance to make it relevant and fruitful for those who are venturing into the industry. As a ministry, we are already in the process of developing medical devices policy, and this new area shall be critically examined and address any policy gap that may exist. With this, we are confident that Ghana will be on the path to the industrialization, especially in the health industry. Let me join to congratulate the Academic City University, especially Prof and his team for this great achievement. And so thank you very much.
Thank you again, Dr. Ajebu, representing the Honorable Minister of Health today. Next on our agenda is a panel discussion with a few key dignitaries, which will be centering on the theme, building local capacity in medical technology. As you can see, the creation of this ventilator is a step in the right direction. As we all know, with the advent of COVID, the need for us to actually focus on manufacturing and developing medical technology in country became a serious agenda. From Dr. Ajebu's speech, you can see government is keenly viewing the exploits we have here by the Academic City University College team. And it is good to see that the Honorable Minister has his eye on everything that's going on here. I would also like us to acknowledge the presence of the World Health Organization in the person of Mr. Christopher Tamau, who are here, also here with us. We also have a team from the All Nations University in Koforidua, led by Dr. Boatima. It's good to see you here. Hopefully we can have some collaboration between the various schools and something good will come out of it. So I'd like to briefly introduce the various panel members for our discussion. I would definitely have to start off with our landlord and the man hosting us today, Professor David Fred Magbagonluri. He's the Provost and President of Academic City College. He is a man who has led innovation across various platforms. I took a look at your CV and wow. If we could display it up here, I'm sure a lot of people will not be too happy with where they are right now, but no problem. One thing that did stand out for me was you were a graduate of the NASA Astronaut Corps. That's quite impressive. Yeah. Any chance you made it up there? Okay, I think I'll discuss that with Prof later on. Okay. We also have with us Dr. Robert Jaglete, who I think, if you remember, he was in the few videos we saw. He is the head of the Department of Anesthesia in the University of Ghana Medical School. He's a consultant anesthetist. He has lectured at UGMS, UCC, Kolebu, and he is, I'd say, the clinical advisor on the project, the local Vent4 project. Thank you for coming. We also have Dr. Anderson Mon, who is the head of the department in the biomedical engineering at Legon. Thank you for coming. And also, as Dr. Jebu said, we are happy to have Mr. Emmanuel Nkrumah, who is the Director, Medical Devices, Cosmetics and Household Chemicals Directorate at the Food and Drugs Authority. So as you can see, for this panel discussion, we have a broad range of market leaders. From the manufacturing side, we have Prof. From the consumer end, we have Doctor. We also have the FDA as the implementer of government policies. So if you would indulge me, please give a round of applause to all our panelists, and we welcome them on stage for our short discussion. Yes, anyway, if you're comfortable. It's your house after all, sir. Okay, so welcome again to all our panelists. Yeah. Okay. So I will hand over this mic to Dr. Jablete, and the theme for our discussion is building local capacity in medical technology. It goes without saying that Prof has a little experience in this aspect. You've been a market leader at Siemens for a very long time, and you might be able to share a lot of insights with us. Prof, could you please give us a view into your mind on the topic?
All right, thank you so much. Let me first start by acknowledging Dr. Jablete. I still remember the first visit. Almost everybody in the team looked a little skeptical whether this really was it. The only person that I would say really believed that this was going somewhere was Dr. Jablete. So I'd like to thank you so much. You know, amazing things start very little. And that is the same kind of support I think we need to be able to develop this ecosystem. When a baby comes out, we all know what it looks like, right? You have to wash it, and then you wrap it up nicely before you call it a bundle of joy. That's exactly how product development begins. You know, I was in this space for about 16 years, building everything from hearing instruments to needles, syringes, dual catheters, scalpels, to building hospital beds, therapeutic surfaces. You know, we call those mattresses, but when they are within the continuum of care, they are part of your treatment process. So we call them therapeutic surfaces. I've done slings, I've done hoists. So everything medical, essentially, I've done both devices and equipment. And there's no single day that I don't ask myself, how come we can't do these things here? It's really about the will. It's never been about the ability. Because as you can tell from the iterations that Dr. Japon showed, with time, you will get it right. It's just a matter of time. And what you saw us do in the last 2 years, even within Fortune 100 and Fortune 200 companies, new products don't come to market within 2 years. So you can just imagine if we have a little shot in the hands that somebody says, we are going to support this, we need this. We all know we need these devices, we need this equipment. But the interesting thing also in what we did here was to take into consideration the realities in our local environment. That it's not just a ventilator, but it also has to be powered. And we have challenges with energy. So we thought about a battery. If somebody is dying, can you put them on battery for 12 hours while you drive from Hamley to Accra or to Okomfo Anokye Hospital? Can we charge it with solar? Now, somebody in the US would not think about these alternate sources of energy because they have electricity all the time or a backup generator. And so even when we import products into this country, we have to understand the dynamics of adapting them to our practical realities. If I were to tell somebody in America that we had a battery-powered ventilator, they'll be like, and what is that? But you know, if you go to Cherepong Polyclinic, most of the time there's no electricity there. So how do you treat a patient that is under strong pulmonary attack and needs to survive? So let me just pause here. I could go on forever.
Thank you, Prof. Thank you, Prof. Thank you, Prof. I would also like to pick the mind of Mr. Nkrumah. Oh, the deputy. Oh, my apologies. I mixed you up with your other colleague. Mr. Sefako, thank you. Thank you for being here with us. As you're representing the FDA here, we also like to know your thoughts or your stance on this topic we're discussing. Seeing as we are focusing on building local capacity in medical technology, the FDA is the safeguard for that here in Ghana. What steps or framework do you have that supports this?
Thank you so much. FDA is the regulator in this space. So as part of our mandate, which is in the at 851, we have to ensure that products that are put on the market, developed and put on the market, meet the right specification. So for us, it's a happy news that there is this initiative coming locally where we are trying to put together a ventilator. That is good for us to know. I think we are also in the shadow of all these happenings. When the ventilator was put together at the initial stages, FDA was on site here, this place, to have a look at the ventilator. And I'm happy Dr. Lucy Ejepon mentioned on-site testing, which we were also here to perform those tests on the ventilator. But that was the initial stages. So these are all processes that FDA as the regulator is also around in the space to ensure that whatever product that will come out finally will be a product that will meet first the standard and also the safety of the product as we put people on it, because these products, people's lives are going to depend on this. So we have to ensure that all the trials, and I'm happy again to know that now the ventilator has moved to Kolebu, where they are doing another series of testing, which are this time is the clinical trials. We call this one the clinical trials, where they are gathering data on how the device will perform finally when it's put out there. So in this space, we are also happy, and we will also continue to provide our policy framework within the body of the act to ensure that the product that comes out finally meets the right specification and is safe for the consumer.
Okay, thank you, sir. Dr. Jablete, seeing as you have a big hand in this project, I'd like to know your thoughts on the entire process, how it has been, and the end goal you see for the greater scope of having local hands in this whole process, extending beyond just the ventilator.
Okay. Thank you very much. I would like to extend a great congratulations to Prof and the team, the whole team. It's been a long journey. I think we haven't ended. We are still on the journey, but we've come a long way. So congrats to all team members. And I would say it's been fun. From the first day that I came in, as Prof said, yes, I saw concepts, but I'm one who believes that we can do it. We have the potential. I'm happy Dr. Jebu is here. We've been talking about equipment for several years, if not decades now. And we all know the problems. It's been highlighted in the minister's speech. We spend so much on importing equipment, and some of the equipment we can't repair or service them. The whole thing is that we need to identify our needs. We need to find out what we really want, and we need to harness all our resources. We have the resources, we have the capabilities, it's all here. And the Western world that we import from, they started from somewhere. And if we also do start, we are sure to catch up with them, if not overtake them. So I believe that we need to keep at it. We started with this ventilator, just concept notes. We've gone through several phases. Here we have an equipment, a device that is actually delivering as a ventilator. It's not there yet. We need to go through some further testing, fine-tuning, before we go through the certification processes to bring it to market. But I am confident that it will definitely come on the market one day, that we would have a made in Ghana ventilator being used here in Ghana, and we will be able to stand on it, build a biomedical industry here in this country. I think we have everything that we need to make it happen. And I would just say that in all this, we need to we need to identify all the stakeholders. We need to work right from the beginning, as we've done, right from concepts, because we all see different sides of the problem. As an end user, there are things that I may want and look out for that maybe engineering may not really put emphasis on. Those who are regulatory will tell you that you can't use this material because it's going to cause harm to the patient. So once we get all the stakeholders right at the very onset together, we find what the problem is, designed or look for a solution, and we build together. But in all this, I want the policymakers, Dr. Jebu, if you can kindly tell the minister that we need the support. Here in Ghana, in Africa, the big buyer of biomedical equipment is the government. And government needs to buy into this agenda that we need. It is time for us to start building our own and patronize our own. COVID has taught us a lesson. Russia-Ukraine war is still ongoing. We are in economic crisis. There couldn't be a better time to start looking inwards. So government should support by providing, we need sustainable funding for such projects. Sure, Prof will tell you R&D or research and development take a while, and it needs sustainable funding. So I would just plead that government looks at this, bring all stakeholders, provide some funding for R&D for medical equipment, and I think we will get there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Doc. Thank you, Doc. Thank you, Doc. Dr. Mon, representing University of
yes, the University of Ghana.
Yes, sir.
Yes. I just, to begin with, to appreciate the work that has been done here with this ventilator. And I hope more will come. Before I go on, what I would want to note here, people to note here, is that actually it is not the COVID that actually opened the eyes of Ghanaian universities to design or to begin innovation. Okay. If you come to the University of Ghana, the Biomedical Engineering Department, we have lots of designs, from electronically controlled crutches to a simple baby bed with heating systems and so many other things. But all these fascinating designs, they're left there in the labs. And the reason being that actually there is no collaboration between the universities and industry in Ghana, the university and government. And I'm surprised that actually government doesn't seem to take interest in what is happening at the universities, particularly the public universities that government is spending huge resources on. Things are done, fascinating things are left there forever. I'm very happy the private universities are coming in because they kind of, in a way, have power in their hands, and whatever they can do, they do. They can just link up with industries or sponsors, and we have this and going on. What is happening at the public universities is bureaucracy. Even as I'm saying, one of them is bureaucracy. The department does something fascinating, but the department cannot invite people or involve people to come and showcase it. You have to pass it through some offices of the university and then follow policies and do this before. And then we do that, and it gets somewhere stuck for years. Nobody hears about anything. Okay. But the university training actually in engineering is meant for the development and advancement of our countries. And that is how United States and other countries are. They actually depend heavily on engineering and technology. They depend heavily on the private sector. And that is basically the students that they graduate from the universities, they train, the skills that they gain, they're out there and they're starting things like this, manufacturing, not only employing themselves, but employing thousands and thousands of other Americans, helping to reduce unemployment rate, and government also getting taxes, not from the companies, but people that are employed, gainfully employed, government get taxes from. So in the end, we all move together. But what is happening in Ghana here is these students, they gain all this, knowledge, and they go out there, and all what they do is rather looking up to government to employ them. And so every year you have hundreds of thousands of students graduating, and all of them are expecting government to employ them after national service. And somewhere along the line, some even form graduate unemployment, whatever. And that is not the way we have to go. So first, if we want to change, policies at the universities must change. Okay, there should be collaboration between government. Government should take interest in what is happening at the universities, particularly the public universities. We should also let our students know that the skills they're learning, if you take Facebook, for instance, it was a student project, right? A student project, they finished and started it and off. It's a multi-billion-dollar company. Same way, we're not training them to just go out and look after government to employ them, but put themselves up in groups with things like this that they learn. They can come together, and then if there is support from government or for grants, startup grants, they could start something like that sort. and also bureaucracy at the government level. Again, like FDA, maybe something sense of that. I'm very happy that FDA people are here, and they're very happy now with what is happening. That when things go up there, they have the interest to facilitate things, to get faster through the bureaucratic lines, and to have our graduates start doing something. Government again, whether government will have the interest where Ghanaians are manufacturing ultrasound probes, and government will actually, agree or accept to purchase our own things here, but not abandoning them and going outside to buy something from Germany because it's made in Germany. I think if we can tackle all this, we actually are in the right direction to have an industry producing things here, not only in biomedical engineering, but in other engineerings that are there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Mon. Thank you, Dr. Mon. Please, a round of applause again for our panelists. I would like to ask each of you briefly your views on a few key points. Dr. Mon, you highlighted academia as a driving force for innovation. As we can see from today's presentation, academia is a massive driving point for these innovations. Because if we had not had this idea from Prof and his team, we would not be here today. So what do you see academia doing in deriving ideas and opportunities for students to actually pursue these views and these obligations and align with us increasing local capacity here in Ghana? Because like you said yourself, if the opportunity is there, the students will make use of the opportunity and create something.
Okay. Yes, everything starts from academia. From airplanes to NASA spaceship going up there is from the universities. Prototyping, everything is done. After all that is done, it's a matter of scaling it up. Okay. What I think we are in the academia should do is, at the moment, what I think is the problem is that we do not actually link up that much with the communities to know what they want. Most of the time, what we do is we think that if we do this, people want it. All right. So rather than linking up with the hospitals and going to the hospital to find out what their problems are, what they want, as where they want us to come in to help, even the devices they have, are you having issues with them? And if you have, how do you think, what do you think we have done could improve? Okay, so that way, if we get projects that are suggested by our communities or stakeholders, and we come and research on them and get the results, we are more likely to have stakeholders buy into what we've done. Okay, what we do today is you just think that I think if I do this, it's going to be a fascinating idea. And then you put things together, and in the end you see that people don't really, it's not something that people really want. Okay. Other thing is to incorporate into our training, let our students know that they're better than just going out and looking at government to get employed. And particularly, I think biomedical engineering is an area where it's not yet known. Recognition hasn't actually been given to it. And I understand students come to say, or biomedical engineers come to say, the hospital actually, they just see them as people who carry canisters around, oxygen canisters, and that, even salaries where they're placed, they are put under administrative kind of thing. They're not well defined. Okay. And I think that on our side, that is what we have to let our students know and actually repackage them for something. We should also have some sort of practical, say, training, whether in forms of workshops, on things that are very, very useful, that when they go and they work in the hospital can see them as actually impacting. And not only those completing, but those who are there already and working. All right. We should also, I think, collaborate more and more with ourselves. Okay, the universities, we don't seem to work together. What is happening here, University of Ghana, we do not know. What's happening at the University of Ghana here, nobody knows. But rather, we're more interested in collaborating with external, like universities in the United States or universities in Germany. I don't actually know whether it's because we cherish those places so much, we want to collaborate and go. But I think if we have internal collaborations, it will go a long way to help drive our forward in the direction that we want to be. Yeah. All right.
Yeah. I think hopefully from today we can foster these collaborations between each other. Okay. Doc, do you have any insights you can give on?
Yeah, so I think he's mentioned, Doc has mentioned a lot. And I think if we don't take anything away from today, I think we should maintain this network because it is key, it's fundamental. And we need, as I said, these are the stakeholders. We need to get industry, we can say representing the medical industry, but we need somebody who is also into manufacturing industry, business-oriented person to join this network because they have the business acumen, how to even, once the products are done, how to even market. So we need that, and we need to maintain this network because it's key. As he's saying, I never knew biomedical, even my own university is making all these equipment. So we need to network a lot. What I will add to what you said is, in academia, if we can allow our students to also come on, call them holiday or vacation trips, yes, so that during their vacation, they come into industry, be it hospitals, everywhere, to try and see how things are there. By so doing, they can then identify some of the problems, and that may give them ideas as to what they want to work on. That will inform some of the research that they want to pursue, devices that they want to see. Those see some of the challenges that we are facing in the field, and with their training, they will be able to find out solutions to some of these challenges that we are facing. And I think when we do that, it will foster the networking. The students will then bring information into the universities that, oh, on the field, this is what I saw, this is a challenge I identified, and talking to the people on the ground, we think this might be a solution to the problem. Yeah. So I think, number one, we should maintain this network, grow it, try and get our students out there to see what it is real life on the ground, and we need to go at it. It's going to be a long process, but once we keep going at it, we will eventually get there. Yeah. Products, design, and it goes through years of refinement. But once the idea is there and someone picks it, and with support, we will be able to get the finished product that we usually want to see. But it means massive support. But I think once we network, we can also look at ways of not just governmental supports, but we can also seek out there with a network like this. I don't see why we cannot look for grants from external funding agencies. I'm sure there are grants out there. If we say this is what we've identified, this is the problem, we feel this is a solution to this problem, it will involve these people coming together, and the impact of the solution that we propose. Once we do that and we put it in a nice proposal, I think we should be able, as a collective, to be able to even source for international funding to be able to help push some of this agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, Doc. Thank you, Doc. Prof,
Yes, sir.
from your years of experience in the manufacturing sector, as you've worked at Siemens and other equipment manufacturers, you did highlight, I think Dr. Jepong highlighted that you've used 2 years to come up with this final solution. It takes companies that are in this industry tens of years to actually arrive here. So how has it been that you have been able to do this with a team of students, I'd say?
So I think it's an issue of commitment and dedication, and also the buy-in from the team, right? That we're at a critical moment in our history where obviously the pandemic is ravaging everything around us. And we're stepping up to say, what can we do as an institution to fill in this gap? So everybody was upbeat, even the volunteers that were not students. And what was quite interesting was that when I put out the call, one of my old students from Ashasi, I said, I hope David applies. I didn't call him directly, but I said, I hope David applies. And David shows up. And if David is here, can you stand up and be recognized? Thank you. So that was one of my first engineering students at Ashasi University. And I must say the most loyal. You know, but these are the things that we need to do to produce these kinds of, we need a critical mass to really go out there and make any changes. But let me digress a little bit. I think anytime we are together, there is always this discussion about the chasm between academia and industry. Let me come at it from the industry perspective, where I spent most of my career. What they are asking us is, what have you done for me lately? What have you done for yourself lately? You are here looking for a job. You are at my mercy. But if a student were to take a final design project to a company and say, this is what you do, I can do it better if you hire me, who wouldn't hire a candidate like that? Essentially, we are not yet a knowledge-driven economy. These guys prefer to go out there and buy stuff and come and sell. And if I'm buying and selling and I'm making my money, why do I care what you guys are doing at academia? The lessons COVID is teaching us is that one day you have the money and you have nowhere to buy from. Yeah. So what we at Academic City have tried to do over the last couple of years is being a little proactive. So I went to Bemwa Royal Hospital in East Legon, where I was isolated for COVID for 2 days, and I went home. Say, what can I do for you guys? I didn't like the bed I slept on. It was so uncomfortable. And I've made some of the best hospital beds in my career. So what can I do to help you guys? And they started bringing out all this equipment, oxygen concentrators, nebulizers, and we brought them here and fixed them and returned them back to the doctor. And what were the problems? Somebody plugging a 110 rated into a 220 volt, pop, explodes. So motherboards fried, transformers fried. And these are basic things. Then I asked them, are you guys going to hire a biomedical engineer? They said, oh, can you second your lab technicians to us? You know? So I think we need to be a little proactive also, especially the projects that we say our students have worked on and they are lying in the workshop on shelves. Can we identify institutions in Ghana that could be interested and bring them in? We need to set up industry advisory boards for our institutions as well. In the past, I've seen members of such institutions actually bringing students' projects into the marketplace, getting them funding and access. So as much as academia has lamented over the last 60, 70 years, I think it's time for us to also step up. We need to step up our game because we can't continue to moan forever. Government resources would not get to us, as you can tell. We're in crisis, right? But what I also tell the government policy makers is that I know some very famous people who could have made Kolebu a world-class hospital who died on stretchers on the floor at Kolebu. So Ghana will give you back what you give to her. When it comes to healthcare, nobody is safe. Pandemic doesn't discriminate. Actually, you saw some of the most prominent people in this country died from the pandemic, right? So, in short, academia has to be a little more projective. We're not projecting enough. Policymakers have to meet us halfway because ultimately they will also be on the stretchers in Kolebu, and Dr. Jabulate will be looking for a Humvee bag to keep them alive for just a few minutes. So healthcare is so critical. I cannot overemphasize the importance of it, that it's worth devoting resources to it. For government institutions, I think government invests so much into these institutions that they have to start turning them into outcome-based institutions. How many patents did you file last year? How many technical publications came out? How many of your students went out and did a startup? Now is the time for these questions. So I really don't know what the answer is, but I think from academic side, we can continue to push the things that we are pushing, and hopefully those on the policy and the government side will eventually realize that one day they will not be able to buy this stuff from abroad, and one day they themselves will need the things that we are doing for their kids, for themselves, and they may not be available.
Thank you, Prof. Mr. Sefako, do you have any thoughts on the issue? I do have one question I'd like to pose to you. As the FDA, oh, sorry, can everyone hear me? Okay, much better now. Okay, as the FDA, when it comes to creating an enabling environment here for academia, also private sector, to engage in these kind of activities, it was refreshing to hear that from the get-go, you were present on site for testing, for developing the frameworks, etc. Are there any specific things the FDA is concentrating on to push this agenda, to help institutions and academia alike to do more of this?
Okay, thank you very much for the question. FDA, like I mentioned, is a regulator, and I am happy that this particular project is happening in the academic space. Why do I say that? Many a times when applicants or clients or whatever you want to call them come to us to get their product certified, and you remember Dr. Lucy Ejepon mentioned that, that they are gearing towards the certification.
Yeah.
Many a times it has to do with documentation. It delays the process that everything would have been done But because of documentation, the product registration cannot be concluded on time for those products to be on the market. But I'm happy this work is happening in the space where every note will be taken. It will help to finalize this project and put the product on the market on time. Because what is happening now at Kolebu is very critical to us. That is the clinical trials they are doing now. Yeah. And that needs to be documented. Every step on the way has to be captured in what is happening in Kolebu now. The risk management is taking place now in that same activity. So it's going to help this project, when it's completed, to quickly put the product out there. In other sectors, if that can be done, where documentation will be moving alongside the project development, it will help. Many a times you hear people say that they come to FDA, their products are not being registered on time, these are the issue. Yes, it is not about the project anymore, but it has to do with documentation, because all this must be scientific based. They are scientific, so you need to document this and support this with your product. So if this is not done, then it will delay or it will prolong the time frame that the product has to come onto the market. So for me, it's a good news, and I hope the team here is taking note of that. So on whatever is being done now, notes are being taken, documentation is moving alongside all the trials, they are documenting it, they are taking the data, they are analyzing the data, because all this will be very, very critical when the project is completed and the product has to finally come onto the market. For me, that is where I would say that we should keep an eye on. As much as we are interested in the project, we are working on the project, we should not lose sight of the documentation aspect, because the two must go together for the product to be on the market.
Okay. Great. Thank you. I'm mindful of the time we are using. I've noticed I'm asking all the questions, so we'll have to open up the floodgates so everyone else can ask some questions to our panelists. So before we do that, I'd like to reintroduce all the panelists here. To my right is Mr. Sefako with the Food and Drugs Authority, Ghana, our landlord and leader of the project here, Professor Mabagon Luri, our clinical advisor, Dr. Jaglate, and representing the University of Ghana, Legon, Dr. Anderson Mon. My apologies, Professor Anderson Mon from the Biomedical Department at University of Ghana, Legon. So, could we have another round of applause for our panelists? And we can now open the floor for questions from the audience. Let me start if no one has, okay. I think David, right? Okay. I think you're okay. Yeah? Okay, Prof, could we have the...
Thank you so much. Yes, is it about COVID products or products in general? Okay. So for us, our requirement says that you need to present application to us. And this application has to do with the products you intend to put on the market. So I think somebody mentioned classification. I don't know whether when we were doing this thing. So for medical devices, the products are put in classes. So the higher the class, the more documentation needed. And we will not back down on the documentation because this is science. And this, many a times, the medical devices has to do with somebody surviving or somebody not surviving. So if you don't have enough data to justify the product that you intend to put on the market, whether people will be safe when they are put on this ventilator, we cannot say we want to rush in registering the product when we are not sure of the clinical trials that is going on now. The product R&D start work, and then the risks, those risks that must be identified, how they are mitigated in the framework, and even when it's being used, the way the risks are going to be mitigated, because everything comes with risks. There is no zero risks anywhere. There will be risks, all right, but what are the measures in that product line that will minimize the risks so that the user is getting the benefit that outweighs the risk that the product is going to give him? And these are signs. This must be documented. So for the documentation aspect, we will demand those ones. But I remember that during COVID, what we decided to do was to sort of speed up work on the processes of putting products on the market, especially COVID-related products. So all the same, we demanded the documents, but we have to turn around to work more than 24 hours if there is nothing like that, to make sure we look at the document, the essential ones that we can look at, so that the product can be given some conditional approvals once we go back on the background and look at the product again. And also getting information from the users, because when the product is done and is put on the market, that is not the end. We still collect data. That is why there will be at times that a product can be recalled. The product initially will be fine, is on the market, and Prof was just saying that some equipment were in a clinic where somebody was plugging in 110 by 240 volts. Yes. So sometimes it's developed, it's out there, and then consistently all the fuse or the motherboards are blowing. You will see that it has to do with the power source. So either you are going to recall that product, or something needs to be done to improve the power source, just to keep the product alive, or the product integrity as is on the market. So the documentation will take it, but we can find ways around it just to speed up the work to ensure the product is out there when it is very crucial that those products must be on the market to save life. We will do that.
I think I should give this. So please introduce yourself.
Yes, my name is Lord Anthony Basing, and I just wanted to share a little bit of perspective from the manufacturing side. The speakers, when they were talking, spoke a lot about local manufacturing and the fact that we needed collaborations and all of that. I think that we need to start becoming very real with ourselves in understanding that government is not going to fund R&D or manufacturing or anything like that. The main reason is that R&D is a very patient process. It takes 2 years is even minimum. Okay, and it does not actually bring any political advantage to put money that cannot be seen physically. So we are not going to get funding to develop things. But there's a lot of funding available outside and all of that for us to do those developments and the manufacturing. The funders are looking for 2 or 3 main things. One, if all of us are biomedical engineers, they are not interested in funding us. One of the things that Ghanaians are not very interested in doing is cross-collaboration. We want to just basically do everything on our own. But when other people are developing, you see somebody in the biological sciences, somebody in chemistry, somebody in biomedical engineering, somebody in mechanical engineering. And so when they put all the knowledge together, they are able to get funding. And that's one of the things. The second thing that funders are looking for is, and so what? After you've developed it, what happens next? They are looking at the manufacturing. And when it comes to the manufacturing, they are looking at how many people are going to buy it, how in the next 5 years, without their funding, where will the product go? Unfortunately, those who need the product are not also the ones that are buying the product. Those who are buying the product are looking at where can I buy and quickly make some money out of it, and they are not interested in local manufacturing. And that is why the local manufacturing space for MedTech has been very stagnant for a long time. I am in local manufacturing. We manufacture diagnostics, and it's been, all our funding has come from external sources. Okay, our local funding sources has been zero, basically. Okay, and we cannot continue doing that because we cannot have foreigners spending on local manufacturing when it is the locals that need the manufacturing. So we need to tackle it from that point of view. We need to generate the demand. Okay, the people that need to buy our products need to actually put money into buying our product. We are not asking them to give us money to do the development because they will not give us. But when we have the money and we do the development and the FDA says this product works, we expect that then local demand should be made. So the policymakers should put in a policy that shows that if you have a local product and FDA has certified that the local product actually works, then at least 30 or more % should be procured. That way we are going to get locals to manufacture, and it's going to get employment and all of the attendant advantages. Thank you very much.
I just want to add to that, when I was in the devices space, we got to a point where the US government actually said they will not buy any product that was in 80% local content. 80%. So we could no longer ship some products from China. We had to go to Mexico and make those products. And because Mexico was part of the North American Free Trade Zone, it was okay. And so we had to hire a lot of engineers in-house. So that creates jobs, right? So as Lord, and by the way, he's my nephew. He's a biomedical engineer also. It runs in the family. We have to make a concerted effort locally to realize that some of the fundamental challenges we're having, even with the economy, are to a large extent self-created. Because if people are not being employed, in quality jobs, you are not getting taxes. You are buying everything abroad. There's pressure on the dollar because you need dollars to buy stuff abroad. So, it's almost like a no-brainer, but I'm not on the other side to really understand what the dynamics are. But for me, as a practitioner, I'm thinking, if you can buy a syringe here for 2 cedis, why do you want to import one from abroad for 5 cedis? But that's the logic engineers don't understand, right? But I think until we start producing these things locally, and we shouldn't give the excuse that we don't have local expertise. Because when we started this project, we didn't have any expertise in building ventilators. I've never built a ventilator in my lifetime. I only see them, and they blink and make a lot of noise. That much I knew. So if you give us the space, the time, and the support, this country is a nation of great potentials. Don't ever doubt the Ghanaian brains. Challenge it, and you'll be surprised what you will get.
Thank you, Prof. Do we have any? Okay.
Okay, just to add to the earlier question. So we have emergency use authorization. So when COVID came, we developed a guideline for giving those emergency use medical devices a very fast approval. In that we requested or we require just limited documentation, it's good to bring this one out. So we don't normally demand all the documentation that would have normally requested because they are emergency use or at the time they have to be on the market quickly for the benefit of the general public. And also public health products, for instance, HIV, malaria test kits. When we have to put them on the market, because they are of importance to the general public, we have a way of looking at them quickly in terms of documentation and in terms of fast tracking whatever needed to be done, testing in-house, or if we have to outsource, we still look at it so that the turnaround time is always manageable so that those products will be on the market for the public to benefit from. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Rachel, a mechanical engineer. I want to propose that we get a very big place where we can put the shelved items, like we have young ones who are producing in their various scanners, small things that can be blown up and then make a living, or for Ghana to also rise up in this technology. But once you do it and there are some setbacks or some low lights, we shelve them. Can't we get kind of a museum or something that can showcase all these things so that it can come out for someone to also buy them or buy the idea so that we can move a step ahead? That is my proposal.
I think we had somebody here who was interested in that. Ms. Engman, I think this question is directed at you. She's wondering if we can create a space where these ideas can be displayed so that those who need them or can take them to the next step. And I know you were doing something or attempting to do something in this space.
Yeah, I think we can have a space. So since I started, the challenge I'm having is that students are simply not interested. So like some of the panelists said, that biomedical engineering students, mechanical engineering students are not interested in developing the devices or trying to go through the whole process of coming up with the devices. They are looking at completing school, getting a job, and getting paid. So that's where we are now. But if we get some, I've done 2 cohorts for now. The first cohort I had to stop because they were not interested. The second one, we are still on it. So if we do get students who are interested, I mean, getting the space would not be the problem, but it's actually getting students to be interested in it. So that's where we are now.
They want the end game. They are interested in the end game.
Yeah, hello. I'm Vincent Issel. I want to touch on what our lady just said about interest. I see that coming to the university and having an interest in building starts from the secondary. If you don't have that exposure to do on your own, you end up coming and you want to just continue with the books. But if you give our young ones the ability to build something on their own, they come with very great ideas. So with this experience, when they get to the university and they are asked to build another, they'll just love it and do it. So in networking, as our brother said, we can join the pre-tertiary institutions so that we can have that interest when you get to the university. Thank you very much.
Yeah, my question is, I want to know from the FDA the mechanism put in place for assessing and authorization of product. For example, is documentation alone sufficient to approve a product?
Thank you. So the documentation varies from product to product. So I think that will be a whole lecture if we want to go into it. So we have products that are in class 1. So those ones, they don't need much documentation. You come to products that are in class 2. they will not, the documentation will be a little more than maybe product in class 1. You will come to class 3, the documentation will be more than the products that are in class 1 and 2. When you come to class 4, which is the highest, the documentation will be so much compared to all these ones. But the documentation is not anything you are going to import from anywhere. It's part of the activity that you have started with. You take these products, you take this one, you document things on it. For instance, the ventilator. Dr. Lucy Ejepon mentioned that they saw some of the components from the market here. So the university did not assemble all this from their own resources, i.e. maybe the raw materials. They saw some other products, maybe the bag, maybe a tube, maybe a circuit board or something. So those that you are sourcing from, they will give you those documentation. That is, if you are doing the right thing from the beginning, they will give you those documentation that you have to assemble. Because when you come to us, we will ask you, this product that you say is a sterile product, you must give us document covering that. Maybe you only source it as a component, as an accessories to your product, that you cannot generate those documents. So it is good that when you are sourcing accessories to come out with your products, final product, you identify your suppliers. It's good you source from a good supplier who can give you information on the material you are sourcing from him. So at the end of the day, you are only putting the documents, the information together to present to FDA. But in any case, if you come and there are challenges with the document, we will help you, we will take you through, we will let you know what is required, what we needed to be in that document. Maybe you presented a document, but the document is inadequate. We will tell you the gaps in the document that you need to fill in just to make the process complete. I don't know whether I've attempted to answer your question. Good, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sefako.
Okay, my name is Collins. I'm a biomedical engineer. I wanted to add up to that question because it was also on my mind. So during that validation or verification of the device, do you only go to the document or you actually test the document to see if it is really what they've written? And if that is so, do you do it alone? Is there a process you follow? Is there someone supervising, like those from academia, the professors, to ensure that probably what they've written is actually what it is? And is there any collaboration between the FDA and then the standard board? Do you collaborate to make sure that probably whatever is being written or whatever compliance or specifications are really what it is?
Thank you. Yes, we do collaborate with our sister agencies, not only GSA, all the other agencies that are in the space of our work. We collaborate with them. And with this, they have to do some level of calibrations in this. Calibration is not our mandate, so GSA will do that. After GSA is done with that, they will give their documentation that will cover the calibration. So the applicant, when he's coming to us, will add those documentation to the product before it will come to FDA. If the product has to do with radiation, you have to go to NRA because it is not within the scope of our act to do that. So you go to NRA, they will do whatever that needed to be done, and they will give you document covering that. Our mandate is to make sure the product that is being put on the market is safe. So all these things will end up with us. But on the verification and the validation, yes, we just don't look at the documents. We come on site. So I mentioned we were here, and we'll be coming here again. So you submit the documentation saying all these things has been done to the product. You document it, you do the validation, you do the verification, you have your data, everything. But we'll come on site for the experiment to be carried out in presence of the team to see what is in the document, whether indeed the device is performing as such. Dr. Lucy Japon mentioned that they intend to do 4 seconds, right? And then presently you are doing 60 to 70% of this thing. Yes. So these are data that is in the document, assuming that that is the final specification that we have to go with. We'll come and we need to demonstrate that and see whether within 4 seconds you are able to deliver whatever you intended to deliver, and whether you are delivering 60 to 70% of whether it's air or oxygen. We'll see it. So we'll just not rely on the documentation and then let the product go. We'll come on site and then get those verification done in presence of us. And let me add that normally these things should have come to FDA, but some devices need special installation. So we cannot ask the applicant to carry this to FDA, come and assemble this at FDA. We'll do the verification, then you deassemble it and take it away. So with the bulky devices, we allow that is assembled or is installed at the site or the location that the applicant so desire to. Then we will now move to the location, because not for this, but for other products, we have to take gravity into consideration when you are doing all the verification. So where the device will be placed, we need to know the gravity, the force of gravity. And sometimes you get 9.98, 9.97. All these are very essential when you are doing the validation. So we will not ask you to bring it there, because you need to get the geophysicists to give you the spot location, what is the gravity there, because we need that in the calculation to get to the data that we so wanted. So there are many things that go into the verification and the validation. So you will not bring this to us. You only bring the document to us, who agree with you, the applicant, where the device has to be placed, and then we will travel to the site and then get the activity done. I don't know whether I've attempted the question. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Sefako. I would like to close the floor to questions now. I would like to close the floor to questions now and invite our panelists to give their closing remarks before we close the whole event out. So I would start from Mr. Sefako.
So in concluding, I kept talking about it, that in the space, FDA is a regulator. And for you to put any product on the market, you need to apply to us. So you go to our website or you come to FDA, you pick an application form, and then you will let us know, or we can also help you to determine the class of the device, because you need to pick the form specifically for that classification of your product. You fill this form nicely. In that form, you will know the kind of documentations that you needed to be added to your the application. You also pay some fees. It's not so much, but you need to pay some fees. And then you have to make the product available to us. At that point, we don't call it product, we still call it a sample. So if this sample is something that can be carried and doesn't need any other installation or special mechanism, you will bring this product to us or sample to us in FDA. We'll look at the documentation. Evaluation will be done on the documentation, which is mostly called the dossier. And then the product will be tested in our lab. If for any reason we cannot do it in our lab, we have profiled some labs in Ghana that we will recommend that the products go there for testing, and then we will have the report. If it's a product of this nature that has to be on site somewhere, We'll discuss that when you are submitting your application, and then we'll arrange with you the applicant, and then we'll come on site. Let me also add that if you are a foreign entity, then you need to have a local agent. If the applicant, who is the manufacturer, who is bringing a product here, you need a local agent. And this local agent is the focal person between the FDA and you, the manufacturer abroad. So all the communication between you in abroad and FDA has to go through this local agent. However, if you are a manufacturer in Ghana, like Academic City College, you don't need a local agent because the manufacturer is right here in Ghana. So that is about the processes that you have to go through. We have a very good and nice turnaround timelines. Your products, if everything is fine, documentation and everything is fine, when we start within 3 months, we should be able to clear everything and tell you whether the product will come onto the market or it will not come onto the market for obvious reasons. If it will not come, we'll communicate to you the reason why you cannot place that product on the market. Let me also caution again that sometimes people will say that they have the application with us in FDA for years. Yes, you may have it with us for months or years, because when the clock stops, you submit something, we started the evaluation and we said, no, this documentation is deficient in a way. Go get it updated. The clock stops at that time until you get it. So if it takes you yourself 1 more year to get the documentation, it is only then that the clock will start again. I don't know whether we are clear with that. So your product doesn't sit with us for 2 years. The clock stops when we communicate something to you to go and fetch and bring. Until you come back to us, the clock is not working. So if you've done 60 days before we communicate to you, then it means you have just about 120 days with us. So if you spend 2 years to go and look for the documentation, it doesn't mean the product is with us for 2 years. Thank you so much for the opportunity to bring FDA to your doorsteps.
Thank you. Let me take this opportunity to thank my fellow panelists here and for all of you making time to be here. Let me also say that we are open for admissions. So if you have wards and brothers and sisters who are looking for an environment where they can project into the future, this is the place. Class sizes very small, hands-on, and I can assure you we give more than just a piece of paper. You're going to walk away from here with some real-life experiences. And when you walk to your employer, you tell them what you can do for them. That's how you get hired. You know, you never get hired when you go begging for a job. So come and join us. Well, this has also been a very insightful project, and for me personally, the attempt was to prove that we have the abilities in this country to do great stuff. And this is what students who were in their 2nd year at Academic City were able to do. So don't walk away from here and have any doubts that the only products that will function in our hospitals are the ones we put on the ship or the plane and bring here. More to the point, the destiny of this country lies in us learning to do things for ourselves. And I'll keep saying that until I retire, until I pass out, that we can do it and we should do it. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to thank Prof. and Academic City and all the team members for this opportunity. It's been it's been quite interesting being on this project, And I want to say that it's, I'm very happy to be part of this initiative trying to get biomedical devices produced in this country. And I feel that is the way we need to go, because we are the only ones who have solutions to our problems. We have peculiar problems in Ghana and in Africa, and we are the only ones who can find these solutions to them. As Prof said, challenge the Ghanaian mind and be amazed with what you get. I really subscribe to that. I would just add and say that no mountain is too high, no challenge is impossible. I know if we work together, we can do it. And I would say that from my end, working with industry, with the healthcare, I would say that we in the University of Ghana Medical School, we straddle both industry and academia, and we are very happy to collaborate with anyone, with engineers who are into development of devices, and we are willing to assist in these endeavors. And I know, yes, together we can. It is possible. We can do it. Thank you.
All right. First of all, I thank the Academic City University College for this excellent work done in organizing this. I thank the GIZ for the support and inviting me here to take part in this important discussion. So I have short messages for students, the universities, government, and then the FDA before we finish. So to students doing biomedical engineering, I want to say that you haven't made a mistake, all right? I think you've made the right choice to pick biomedical engineering, even though at the moment, people do not see biomedical engineers as people see them out there, but we're getting there, right? You made a right mistake because biomedical engineering is a completely different type of engineering other than others, right? Where there are so many fields under biomedical engineering that as you go up, you can specialize in take it from hospital design, healthcare, technology assessment, medical imaging, instrumentation, as this is, and a whole lot of things. Designing and making systems to, there are higher prospects for you than, say, you go into do electrical engineering and you want to become a manufacturer. Then the cost of starting a company is very high, like to manufacture transformers. Whereas we can take from very heavy equipment like the MRI, the CT scanner, to even the blind man's tech, the hearing aids, and that do not require that much of money to make, right? So in the right place, don't also think of it that when you go out, you have to only look into the eyes of the government to give you employment. You are the sources of employment, right? To government, we are, to the universities, we need to do more, not just the academics, but give more practical training to our students, collaborate more with one another. One man cannot have everything. There are things that this university has. There are things this university doesn't have. There are things that the University of Ghana has and things that do not. Let's collaborate more. Even some of the laboratories, we may not have some at the University of Ghana, but if need be, some biomedical students can be brought here to gain knowledge. You can bring your students to the University of Ghana for knowledge. And that way we can come together to make things work. To government, pay attention to to local the universities here and the companies in the country that are producing things. In that, it will help to cut down costs. It's going to help all of us, particularly the government. Like they were talking about the cost of medical equipment we go out to buy. And the reason being that if an equipment is made in the UK or the United States, the cost of manufacture alone, right? Let's say you're living somewhere in California and your salary alone, a worker receives about, say, $15,000. And it's coming from what you make. So in the end, the cost is high. Here in Ghana, our products, if they even you finish here and you're getting a salary of, say, 5,000 and so, Ghana cedis, it's good to start with. And so all these things help to bring down the cost of production, all right? And also, one government should also know, and everyone should know, is that some of these systems are designed not for our temperatures. Somebody in, say, Canada designing a system is looking at the temperatures and conditions that prevail in Canada. And these are some of the things you can bring something from a very cold that is designed for a very cold country to our countries here, and you have a problem with it. So if we pay attention to what we can do here, we're going to design things that will withstand our weather conditions, whatever conditions that we have here, and that will help to cut down the cost of the amount of resources we spend on medical equipment. FDA, when it comes to you, I'm very happy to hear that, and you were part of this from the beginning. And as you can realize, we will need your support when it comes. When we have all the documentations, it should take just 1 week for you to give us what we want. Thank you very much.
Please, a round of applause again for our panelists. From your left, we had Professor Anderson Mon, Head of Department at the Biomedical Engineering Department, University of Ghana, Legon. Next to him, we had Dr. Robert Jaglete, Head of the Anesthesia Department at University of Ghana Medical School. Next to him, we had Professor David Magbagon-Luri, the President of the Academic City University College. And next to him, we had Mr. Roland Sefako, who is the Deputy Director, if I'm right, Deputy Head of Medical Devices, my apologies, Head of Medical Devices at the Food and Drugs Authority, Ghana. Thank you once again, thank you all. You may take your seats back. Please, a round of applause again for them. Just to add on to what Professor Mon said, to the students of biomedical engineering, my classmate is here actually, Collins, and I think he can attest to the fact that from first year to third year, we didn't know how to answer the question, what are you guys actually doing in this school? That was at KNUST, but I think right now we can answer the question. So if you are studying biomedical engineering now, like the panelists said, you have a very bright future ahead of you. Yeah, very, very, very bright. So keep at it, take some stock from what's happening here, and see that there's a good future for you. So. We have gone through a lot so far. I would like to invite from the GIZ Ghana Health team, the team lead, Dr. Holger Till, to give us some closing remarks from our partner sponsors and funding sponsors. Great, GIZ. So if you could give him a round of applause and welcome him here.
Yeah. Yes, good afternoon. I'm happy to stand here. Actually, I'm not a professor. I'm just a simple doctor. But I'm happy to be here, and I remember, when was it, more than 2 years ago. Then I just came back from Guinea, March 2020, and then with one of the last planes entered here, and then this corona situation, I think, hit us all. And then in a very short time, I was very happy to get in contact with, I call him my brother Fred, Prof. So it was actually very nice that we got in contact, and we were looking at the situation. How far are we here in Ghana? And I consider myself more a Ghanaian than a German, because I'm living here since 30 years. So therefore, we were here and we were looking at how far are we depending on import of knowledge, import of items. Then there was a huge shortage of ventilators. Then to even get a ventilator here, I don't even remember the number of ventilators we had here, but it was really frightening. So, and then the idea came, why not also produce our own ventilators or ventilation aids? And this initiative, I think it is a very laudable one. I was very happy to be part of it. And I think for me, this is just the beginning. This is the beginning that we really should make sure that we don't depend too much from Europe, from other countries. We should stand on our own legs. So therefore, I'm very happy to be part of this initiative. I want to thank Prof for the good collaboration. Thank you very much. And I'm really looking forward for future projects, and also the issue of biomedical engineering to all of you. I think you're on the right path, because this is what we need here. We don't need only the machines. We need people who can maintain, who can set up the machines. I worked so many years in different hospitals, in Agogo, in Ridge Hospital, in Mamprobi, in all these hospitals, and very often you see the nice machines, but nobody can actually set them up. And this is really very frustrating if you have patients and you want to really do your best, but the machines are not maintained. So therefore, I think you are all of you are on the right track. Keep it up, and thank you very much for this perfect collaboration. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Holger Till, team lead for GIZ Ghana Health Team. Could we have another round of applause for Dr. Till? So, next for us is our vote of thanks. But before that, I would like to announce those of us who have not registered for the program can register outside at the desk. You'll be assisted to do so. And please make sure you do that registration before we leave here. From here, we have a wonderful lunch served to us by our hosts, the Academic City University College, which will be served at the cafeteria, but only after we have registered will you be able to access the food. Thank you. So I would like to invite for our vote of thanks. Excuse me. Okay. I'd like to invite Janice Emefa to give us a vote of thanks for today. Please give her a round of applause.
Hello, everyone. My name is Janice Emefa Kwame, and I am a fourth-year computer engineering student here at Academic City University College. And I'm very honored to have to give the vote of thanks for today's occasion. Of course, we can't go by without thanking the Almighty God, because then He gives us the gift of life, right? So then, thank the Almighty God for giving us the gift of life. Thank you so much, GIZ, for your support throughout this journey, throughout the journey of this project. I would like to thank the Honorable Minister of Health and his representatives for gracing this occasion as well. to the President of Academic City, Professor Fred Magbagon-Louis, and then to the Dean of Engineering, Dr. Lucy Ejapon. We thank you so much for your guidance throughout the journey of this project as well. A big shout out to the Local Events for Africa team for your tremendous work and commitment to this project as well. And then to our panelists, we thank you so much for expanding our knowledge, for opening our eyes to things that we wouldn't know or we were very oblivious to as well. I'm sure we all learned a thing or two during the panel discussion as well. To our sponsors, thank you so much for being with us throughout this journey. And to the organizers of this event, we appreciate you. Thank you so much for giving us the platform to showcase our projects and to tell the world that we can do stuff as well. And to our guests, to all of you seated here, thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Well, we are at the end of our program, and I would like to say a big thank you to the team here at the Academic City University College and GIZ also for organizing this event. Like we just heard, I think many of us have learned a few things today that we were not aware of, and we can take them further into our lives and see how best we can lift up biomedical engineering here in Ghana. So once again, I'd say if you have not registered, please move straight to the desk outside and complete the registration. You will be assisted to do so. And from there, we can all move to the cafeteria for a short lunch. After that, we will be going straight to the soccer park for the fair, the actual fair that we're here for today, which will be comprised of various vendors coming to display their wares, I'd say, and projects by the students of the college. So thank you once again. Please give yourselves a round of applause. I think it's been a very wonderful event, and thank you. Thank you once again for coming. Thank you all.